So let me ask you, looking for a lawyer can be difficult, but we are going to learn today what to ask, what red flags to look out for, because you never know when you're going to need that lawyer to come on in and help you out. So stay tuned. Welcome everybody to this episode of Journey of an Entrepreneur, where we are going to be talking to, he is a employment and personal injury attorney. He is the author of A Case for Greatness. His name is Alvin Adjei, and we actually go back. I interviewed him 4 years ago, and he's making a part 2 today, and we're going to dive into what questions to ask, red flags to look out for when hiring an attorney. But before I bring him on, my name is Sri, and I am a video marketing producer. My team and I work with medical, dental, and law practices in helping build their social media presence so that they can get leads to hire the right talent for their teams, to be able to have more time in their lives so they can spend it with their families. So without further ado, let's go ahead and bring up Alvin and get an update about what's going on. But first, let's find out, what's your favorite color?
Favorite color is blue.
Why blue?
Because who doesn't love blue? I mean, blue is just fantastic. It's great. I feel like when I see it, it makes me think of being cool and relaxed. It makes me think of the beach. And I think when I think of the beach, I think the ocean, and I think relaxation.
I feel the same way too. Like, I love blue, but I also love purple, except right now the pink is showing. All right, let's get into this. So, it's been a few years, and we're just going to get into, you could have been anything that you wanted to, but why did you choose to become a lawyer?
Yeah, no, thank you for the question, and thank you for having me on, Sri. I like the journey of becoming a lawyer was not like an automatic one. I initially wanted to become a medical doctor, and then I took physics and was like, I don't think I'm going to be a doctor. And then I was in the business school, and I enjoyed that, but I felt like that I was supposed to do something more. So the journey came. It was a journey to come to the decision of becoming a lawyer, but ultimately um, I wanted to have a calling that I felt like that I would be a good advocate for people. I felt like that I would have the opportunity to be able to speak for people who needed help, to be able to, fight on their behalf so they weren't bullied around and that they could get justice. And I had some of like small experiences that kind of led me to the result of becoming an attorney and becoming a trial attorney, and just been enjoying it since.
Now, for some of us, we're like, okay, I get why you had a passion. You want to help others. You want to help them get the, because I mean, also personally, like, I hear this story, but then things happen. And, what are reasons why people go from like, I love helping people to, I never return your phone calls?
Yeah. um, well, I think that it's really important when you are looking for an attorney that you are looking for someone who is going to be a good fit. And one of the things that's really important is making sure that they are going to be honest with you, that they are going to be an effective communicator with you. There are a lot of attorneys who are effective communicators in a courtroom, but they may not be effective communicators with their clients. And you want someone that's going to be hardworking. And those are some of the things that you really want to look for, because if you don't have those things, I don't think that you have a good foundation for what's going to be a really great trial, attorney to fight on your behalf.
So you brought up you want to find someone who's really good with their communication skills. And look, guys, if you have questions, you can drop them in. I do want you to know, like, this is just a conversation. I'm just trying to help you with decide what to look for when deciding to hire an attorney. If you really have questions about a particular case, this is not the place. You can definitely reach out to Alvin. Let him know that you saw him on this show, and he will take you further as to how to take the next steps. But for me personally, I'm just trying to understand, like, okay, I see your social media. You're everywhere, right? Like, you're doing the ads, you're doing the posts, you have an outfit for the day. Some of them do that. I see you go live on TikTok, but how do I know you're a good communicator?
When you have a meeting with, so I think when you reach out and you talk to the staff of the law firm that you want to get to, and hopefully you get a meeting with the attorney. One, if you end up having a meeting with either the paralegal or someone from the staff, that is really going to be a really good indicator of how that attorney is going to be, because they usually got hired by whoever the hiring attorney is, and that attorney was looking for certain qualities in that individual that help set the tone. And a lot of times they're going to be the first face that people are going to either see or talk to before they get to an attorney. So I think, like, how do you feel like when they're being treated? Questions like, are they asking questions as far as about, like, um, do they seem interested in your case? Are they asking questions about your case? Are they asking what your motivations are? What are the goals that you want to achieve? How fast and efficient are they? So those are things that you really want to look for. And then when you're talking to the attorney, again, like, you want someone who's going to be, I know that lawyers have a bad rap, and there's so many lawyer jokes about them being, liars, but most lawyers really try to listen to what their clients need, explain to them how the law works, and then come up with a strategy to get them to the best result that they can under the law. And there are many different ways of doing that. And you really just want to make sure that you have someone who's trying to understand you, and someone who's going to be able to communicate with you. Looking at reviews that lawyers have is also a good thing. So Google reviews are really good. Avvo is also a really good source. And then a lot of times people end up getting referred an attorney from someone who's like a former client. So sometimes that might be a question where you can be like, if there's a client that's willing to give permission to say, yes, I'm willing to talk to someone about it. That doesn't always happen, but a lot of times, like, you'll have a client that will say, hey, I had a good experience with this attorney, and they refer a friend. So I think that's always really a good way too, is that having good word of mouth is a really good opportunity. Going to sources where people are answering questions. So if a lawyer is answering questions, or if they're using this platform to communicate with individuals, whether that's through Instagram, or whether it's through Facebook, or whether it's through LinkedIn. Are they talking about substantive areas of the law in a way that the layperson can really grab onto and understand? Then those can be some indicators that you want to look for. But ultimately, once you have that meeting with the lawyer, those are the things you really want to look for. Like, are they honest? Are they a good communicator? Are they professional? Do they have a good reputation? Do they care about me? And do they have a history of success? You can have people who are young and they are really successful, but maybe their track record isn't that long. And then you have some people who are really experienced, and they may not be a good fit, even though they do have a lot of success. So each case, each client, each attorney is going to be something that is going to be unique. And you really want to make sure that you're not just picking someone just because, like, it's glitzy online. It really needs to be the person that is going to be a good fit for you.
I love that you brought that up because, it is true. You're like, okay, so when do I get to talk to you? I never talk to you. You talk to people, and then it makes you wonder, okay, so how often should the like because let's say as a social media manager, or a producer, I talk to my clients a lot. Like at least once a month, I'm talking to them. That's like minimum. But when I feel like when you hire a lawyer, I feel like you never hear from them. So it's kind of like, so when and at what point do you say, hey, what can we have a conversation? Is it on the part of the individual, or is it that on the part of the lawyer?
That's a great question. I'll say, like, in my practice, like, to give an example, there are some clients who they want to know everything. And, if you gave them the opportunity, they'd probably talk to you every single day. And if that's an efficient way and people want to do it that way, I think they can do that. The way that we do it is that we usually at the intake or within like the first month, we sort of ask them and say, like, how often do you want to be able to have a meeting or a conversation about it? Because typically we're going to communicate with you when something dispositive happens, meaning like if a demand letter got sent, or we're deciding that we're going to file suit, or there's going to be depositions, or there's going to be a mediation where there could be um, a mediator to help in negotiations for a settlement. Like, usually we do those things, but and if we need information from you in order to prepare for those different phases of the case, if like, so some clients are fine in getting a check-in like once a month, or like once when something like this, important happens, but some want to know more. So then it's like, at that point, then it's like, okay, why don't we just have a time that's set? And that was what I would recommend, that says like either once a week or once every 2 weeks, whether something happens or not, we just have a conversation about it and just say, this is what's been done. Like, these things have been ordered. Either, so if it's a personal injury case, maybe like your medical records have been ordered, or the police record has been ordered. That's it. And it could be that it's been 2 weeks. We've sent a demand letter and we're waiting to hear back. They still have more time. In the meantime, like, it's kind of just, this is just a waiting period to see what happens next. So it just depends. Again, like, that's why it's always so unique. It just depends on the client. There isn't one size fits all, because you can have some clients who are just like, you don't need to call me every time, every 2 weeks, or every time some little thing. Like, I'm here for the big stuff. They're like, I trust you. I'm hands off. And some are very hands on. And some of the employment cases that we have, you have people who have had to get an attorney for the very first time in their life. They have had a very complicated now relationship with their former employer, so we represent the employee against the employer at HKM Employment Attorneys. And it's hard and it's frustrating, and they feel really close to it. So they want to be involved. Not all of them, but a good portion want to be really involved in the process. So for some of them, they want to check in once a week, or they want to check in every 2 weeks. And sometimes the frequency helps, so that the conversation isn't like, because you may have a meeting with a client and it's an hour. You may have a meeting with a client and it is 15 minutes, 30 minutes. One of the benefits, I think, in having, if you do have a client, particularly in the beginning, if they're just like kind of high need, they're high need, meaning that they want to talk with their attorney at least once a week, that it does help to build a relationship. And they tell you not just stuff about their case, they tell you about what's going on in their life, about how they're going and finding a new job, or that someone has passed away in their family, or a kid is graduating. And these are all really important things, because as you'll see, like, really effective trial attorneys, they can find ways to weave in some of the stuff that maybe at the outset doesn't really seem relevant into the story, to humanize their client. Because ultimately, if you end up going all the way to trial, I mean, you're going to have to find a way to present the facts in a way to 6 or 12 strangers about why they should care about your client, and then 2, why they should vote or rule in favor of your client. So sometimes these conversations, I think they can be really beneficial, and it can also help to make sure that they're not like needlessly too long. Like, long conversations, I think, are really important for really important phases, whether that's a deposition or mediation. But if it's just like we were requesting records, I think sometimes people just want to have to be able to have the check-in. But because lawyers are busy, they're doing a lot of things. Just because you don't see your lawyer every week or every day doesn't mean they're not working on your behalf. And that's also really important to communicate.
I love that you brought that up because it makes me, put in perspective that this lawyer is representing you, and it kind of is a little bit, my experience is a little different, but I will say what you shared shows that you would be somebody that if anybody's looking for a lawyer for personal injury or employment, I would highly recommend you, just because the way that you said, like, we sit down and we talk to you and we find out what works. You I was in a situation about a year ago where I was in limbo. Nobody was telling me what to do. I didn't know. I walked for 2 months without a car. So that was really, really frustrating. Like, I would never put that to anybody. I wouldn't even recommend that person to anybody just because of my experience. So I'm always a little like, okay, I've already had a bad one, so I'm looking for a better one. And then I realize, for those who are watching right now, why I'm focusing on medical, dental, and law practices, because of a personal experience where I saw, like, what you see on the screen is not necessarily what you see behind the scenes. But this brings me to, the next segment, which is really cool because when I first met you, you didn't have a book, but
Hmm.
now you have the book. So if you could go ahead and show us that book,
Yeah.
which is called A Case for Greatness. And if you saw, maybe you didn't, the name of the title of this episode is A Case for Greatness with Alvin Adjei. I know I was so creative in it. But I wanted to get into that book because it does, it is your journey in that book. And you talk about a time when you went to Jasper, Texas. Now, I would love to know, if you're watching the live or you're listening to the podcast, if you know about Jasper, Texas. I will share with you right now. It was like, what, in the 90s, that
Yeah.
someone got tied. This poor gentleman, he was lynched, dragged, and this was all in Jasper, Texas. So even myself, when I hear the name Jasper, Texas, I'm a little bit, like, we can go around the city, we can find other ways, but you know what was your dad trying to teach you when he was taking you on that road trip to Jasper, Texas?
Yeah. So, I mean, I talk about it in more detail, obviously, in the book, but the there's several lessons I think that he was trying to impart upon me. So this came at a time when I had been accepted and was planning on going to the University of Notre Dame in South Bend, Indiana. And as someone who has born and raised in Houston, Texas, a place known for its great diversity, and Notre Dame, which is a wonderful institution, and I spent 7 years there, but I had never visited the campus. I had never been in a snowstorm, which is both are things that were going to happen when I went to Notre Dame, and I had been in an environment that was just not diverse. I mean, there weren't that many people that were going to be from Texas, that weren't going to be. I mean, I was going to be an outsider. In fact, that I wasn't Catholic. There weren't that. I mean, my class of that year was, I think, less than 3% Black. So there were a lot of things that I was now having to come to terms with as an 18-year-old kid going into this environment. And there's just a lot of unknowns. And I think when you're 18, you're very cocky. But I think, like, when you realize, like, you're not going to be close to home because South Bend, Indiana is almost 2,000 miles away from my hometown. um, I was starting to, like, I think, be overwhelmed and be anxious about it. And then also wonder, maybe, like, I was really a good fit to be over there. And my dad knew that, like, you're not going to be successful if you're going to go into something with a defeated mindset. And I don't think that he felt like in that moment he could just give a short, like, little talk to, and just like a little he wanted to drive the point, and he wanted to do something that was going to really make an impression. And he went to school at Texas A&M Kingsville, which is a small town, and a lot of his best friends were from those neighborhoods. So he had a nuanced and informed perspective that just because someone is from a certain part of the country that maybe is not as big or as cosmopolitan doesn't necessarily mean that it's not going to be um, as open-minded as people might perceive it to be. So I don't, even though like obviously Jasper, and I'm sure Jasper has a lot of great people, and I think he technically had some family members that lived not too far outside the city. Like I think he knew more than he was letting on in the beginning. So for me, it felt very dangerous, and I think for him, he knew a lot of things that kind of gave him the comfort to be able to put the family really in that situation. But yeah, I mean, so I illustrated in the book that I didn't know where we were going. He kind of puts us in the car, and he's dressed in a way that is very attention getting. I mean, he's wearing African garb, gaudy gold chain, which is not, I mean, my dad's from Ghana, so he'll dress in the cultural dress sometimes, but that's not his everyday attire. But that day, he decided he was going to dress in that manner, and he was going to go to a place that he knew had a reputation that was not necessarily the most welcoming for someone who's going to be seen as a cultural outsider. And he shares this story to me about the talents that's in the Bible. And ultimately what he was saying is that if you are going to go into this new phase of your life, you don't know yet what gifts you have, you don't know what talents that you have, but you need to go in there with the mindset of that you are going to be that you're going to be successful, that you can believe in yourself, and that if you go in there being ruled by your fear instead of your faith, you're going to miss a lot of opportunities, and you're going to ultimately fail to live up to the gifts and the talents and the destiny that you have for you. So, I mean, there's some other lessons in there, but I think that was really the main takeaway that, yes, it's okay to feel fear, but it's not okay to let it rule you to the point that you are paralyzed by it. And that really helped us set so that when I went to school, I wasn't intimidated by the fact that I was in a really new place and my parents weren't there.
Well, I loved what you said. Hey, Garen, rule by your faith, not your fear. It's something that keeps coming up a lot, at least in this journey, in this season I'm in, about building my business. And can you show your book once again so we can make sure I drop the links? If you're listening to the podcast, I'll make sure the links are there in the description. You want to get a copy of the book. It goes deeper into the different trials he's had throughout his life to shape him to be the man he is today. And it is an easy read. It's not like it's difficult. And I can't wait to grab my copy because it's going to be like autographs.
Absolutely.
Because we live in Houston. But I wanted to get, because you are an entrepreneur. And when we met, you had a practice, but things changed. So going back to that, what did this lesson, I'm not saying going back because we are forward and it's helping you to be where you are today. What are lessons that you learned with your former partner, and, how are you carrying it into what you do today?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I mean, so one of the things about being like an entrepreneur that it taught me in that journey was that there were a lot of highs and there are lows. And how you make peace with the time when things are really well and when things are really low is really going to define like how happy you're going to be on that journey. And I think that the research, and I don't have specific numbers, but if you make your mindset that that it's going to work out, it's going to be successful, then there are like sort of along the way, there's like these little green shoots that happen, like these little nuggets of success that happen that keep you encouraged. And like when that happens, you realize that like the more stable, higher plane is coming. Like it's going to be there, but there is going to be some valleys that are going to happen along the way, and not like being crushed by the valleys, and obviously, but two, also not like getting carried away when you're on the mountain is so important. I think one, just for your mental health in that period, but I think also just in life in general. And that was one of the big lessons that I learned, that it took me a while, because I think in the beginning it was scary, right? It's something that's completely new, and we were really young, and we had a lot of success, and we were go-getters, and we just kind of like went on faith and energy and came up with the strategy and just did it, and had a lot of success. And we had some challenges as well. And so the firm's in a different phase now, and where just, I think, just because of life, like different opportunities opened up, and that's fine. Like every life has different seasons to it, and we learn from it and we adjust. And um, I think that it's just a different season for it. So I had the opportunity to, about a year ago, to interview and have the opportunity to work with HCAM employment attorneys. They're based out in Seattle, and they're one of the largest plaintiffs employee firms in the country, and we really enjoyed the relationship that we've had with them. And we just went to the retreat in December, had a lot of fun. And yeah, we're just continuing to grow and move forward. Our paralegal Roque, we just found out that he got accepted into Thurgood Marshall School of Law. So really excited for him, on this part of his journey. He's been with our office for, I guess, technically one full year with the BA, which is now the AA law firm. And then with HCAM, he's been with us for the entire time. So he's gotten to see that full journey of that kind of the transition for the more entrepreneurial part, to now, working with the firm, which is still entrepreneurial in its mindset, because obviously, even though now you have the resources of a national firm, they still want your office to produce and get clients, and to produce and make money for the firm and benefit clients. So we're really happy for him and as on that journey, and we're just going to continue to grow and move forward.
Hey, Gracie. So if you're just trying to figure out what are we talking about, so when I met Alvin 4 years ago, he just started a law firm. He had a partner, and then things changed, things happened, and now he's not with that person, no hard feelings, and now he's partnered with another HCAM law firm, which specializes in employment law. But for those of you who are like, can I hire him? So when is the right time to come to you if, like, let's say you want to sue your former employer?
So that's a hard question to answer. I would say that, like,
Call you.
yeah, call me. I mean, I would say, like, if you think that you either just recently been terminated, or you think you're about to get terminated, then that is a really good time to reach out. I mean, I think it can also be good, just like if something bad is happening that is like not right, either it's against the company policy, or the company has a policy that is either illegal, or is just something that's causing detriment to your mental health and your well-being, or you're being asked to do something that is not right, whether you feel like it's not ethical, or it's illegal, then I think at that point, even before the termination phase, you may want to reach out to an attorney, and at least at that point, like, you can get advice. But it's really hard to do anything actionable until there is something that is a severe level of adverse action, which usually is either retaliation that usually results in termination.
Yes. And what Gracie says, and we said it earlier, it's case by case, because each story is definitely different and unique. And do you only work in Texas, or like, let's say somebody is in California or another state, could you represent them, or like, how does this work?
Yeah, it's a great question. So our cases, particularly if they go into litigation, I'm going to be here in the Houston office, so we'll be here in Texas. But HKM is in over 30 cities across the nation. So if someone was in California, but let's say maybe they're working remotely for a company that's based in California, but they were working here in Texas, then they may work with us, and then we, depending on the phase of the case, we could then work with our office that's in California to help. And so we have one that's in LA and one in San Diego. So I mean, that's what we would do in those cases.
So basically what I'm saying is go ahead and reach out to Alvin, connect with him here on LinkedIn. If you're watching this on Facebook, connect with him on Facebook. And if you're listening to the podcast, you can connect with him on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, and tell him that you heard him, saw him on this show. So that way he knows. And again, if you could, I'm going to say it one more time. Can you go ahead and show us the book?
Oh, yeah.
Grab your copy of the book. You can learn more about him, learn just about, how people think I would say I read a little bit of the book and I felt like I could understand other lawyers, but I know it was your personal journey, but it gets like you to think how you can get, questions you should feel that you should ask to your attorney. How can you help them and vice versa? So this is what we're going to do. We're going to continue this conversation on Instagram, and I'm asking you to come and join us. I want to say thank you to everybody who joined in to listen in on the podcast or on the live or the replay. We really appreciate it. And next week, I have an amazing guest as always. Look out for that announcement. But I just want to say thank you, Alvin, for catching up with us today.
Absolutely.
We're going to continue on to Instagram. But until the next time, everybody, bye.
Bye.